Presentation about it takes a village to raise a design system. So we could talk forever about our design system, so we have picked out some topics that we're going to talk about today. So first of all, we're going to tell you a bit about what a design system is, and then we're going to talk about how we raised our design system, and at the end how we included the village or our team to raise the design system. First, so you will say a bit about what Finn is.
Yeah. So Finn is Finn is Norway's biggest and actually most recognized marketplace, and it's like on a general basis. I think all Norwegians spend about like 25 hours in total every year on the service, and we're not a big country, but that's pretty huge. And at Finn you can find all sorts of things. It's a marketplace for you can buy your first used car, your first apartment, not even your first, but just an apartment in general, or drool over that new Ferrari or used Ferrari that you really want. So basically it's a marketplace for all your dreams, potentially. So yeah, we are about 450 employees at Finn. And we are a team of 12 UX designers working in cross teams with product developers, and product managers, I guess. Yeah. So before we go into like how we do our design system, it would be nice to see like a reach of hand, like who has a design system today? Let's see. Oh, it's quite a lot. Who wants a design system? Or have thought about starting it? Yeah. So before we kind of go into that, like for maybe some don't know or that we don't have a clear or the same common knowledge of what that is. So we could start with this beautiful button right here. This is a quite common component for a design system. It's something we've used for so many years and we love. Obviously this button, it has Comic Sans. That really doesn't work. So we should change that to something more modern and more serious. Let's add some round corners and maybe some flair to get that like pop. But then the branding team kind of comes in and okay, we need to use that the brand color. So okay, we're pretty happy with this amazing button now. It's so vibrant and so clickable. But then at the same time, the 4 other designers in your team has also made their amazing contributions to the buttons, right? And one of them, even in this meeting, one of them says out there, oh, but nothing beats the friendliness of Comic Sans. It's like the best font, so human, so alive, right? And then you kind of have this like ongoing discussion or endless discussion about all those smaller things, and maybe the thing that you were actually supposed to talk about, maybe a better user flow or better user experience. Maybe that gets buried in this discussion about the perfect button. So definitely, I'm guessing most of you have been contributing to those kinds of discussions where you just like, you really have a passion for the Comic Sans or that color. So wouldn't it be really nice if you had like one source of truth? Yeah, that was the sound that we were supposed to have down here. Source of truth. So one button that would be the source of truth for all buttons, right? So we have a common knowledge of what a button should be. It's a very small example here, but yeah, to have a source of truth, it's really important. Typically, this one would live in a library with other source of truths as well. So you can have a button, you can have a checkbox, a radio button, a slider of some sorts, and some colors. So very basic terms of what a design system can be. Typically, you also have like some documentation to kind of inform like how do you use this component, or and also some coded components. You could just like the developers could just paste them into their code. So here's a quick view. It's a small screen, but you can check out the rest of our design system and finivas.fin.no if you want to have a closer look. Here are some of the components that kind of make out fin.no as a service. Yeah, so Ingrid's gonna give you a little ride through how we raise our design system.
Yes. So at the beginning, a couple of years ago, we wanted the components to be available for all of the designers everywhere. So the designers used a lot of different tools, and it was a really good intention, but the journey looked a bit like this when the designers were designing stuff. So it was really confusing to know what was the latest design, because we had some design in InVision, the prototype tool, and some design in the UI kit or UI library we used in Sketch. And we had a lot of different tools of these types where we had the components everywhere, sort of. So that was really confusing, and the designers just ended up asking me, like, what is the newest design, what should I use? So that was really a lot of unnecessary work and unnecessary questions. And it didn't really get any better. We were in the middle of a transition with changing out the CSS framework from old to a new one. So people looked at the old one and thought, this is going to be the new design. Or like, no, this is the old design, you have to look at this. That was really confusing. So we started cutting down the tools and defined who is going to use which tools. So this made the journey a lot easier for designers and kind of cut down to the source of truth. But it's not really one source of truth either, since we still have a lot of tools. But at least the different roles know what they're going to look at as their source of truth. So in the middle we have Finivas, which is our guidelines site. So everyone is going to look at that as a source of truth for how to use different components. And between, we saw that there were different needs for the developers and the designers, of course. So the developers in the design system team, they needed to know the spec of the button, like font size, the paddings, the colors. While the designers, they only needed like to drag and drop components, because they weren't supposed to think about the paddings, because that should be already figured out. So for the developers, we use Zeppelin for the design spec, and between us designers, we use InVision Design System Manager, which is a library where you can just drag a component into your sketch and it's finished, sort of. So we still gotta work on this to make it even better, but it has gotten a lot better than it was a couple of years ago. And to manage to do all this, we have to update all of this, like Zeppelin and InVision DSM. So we created this process to make it easier for ourselves to know what parts should we update next.
Yeah. So although we do have like a process that it can be quite complex. You have to check this, you have to do some research, and then you have to like update the component and make sure that this one is out for everyone. Make sure that, and most importantly of all, maybe to make sure that the developers actually make the component in code. Otherwise, you kind of just like have this beautiful design, but then yeah, every developer kind of just does their own thing. We kind of noticed that, okay, so since we were so many in the design team and everyone we're trying to avoid the chaos where everyone makes and creates their own elements. We kind of figured out that, okay, we need to involve people a lot more. There's this African proverb that probably a lot of people have heard. It takes a village to raise a child. What Wikipedia says is that it takes an entire community of different people interacting with children in order for a child to experience and grow in a safe environment. The villages would look out for the children. If we kind of translate this to design system, it sounds like this. It takes an entire community of different people to interacting with the design system in order for it to experience and grow within the product. The teams would look out for the design system. So why we kind of found that this was kind of useful is because if we make a component and we don't communicate why we did the change, how can people out there really kind of root for it or give feedback to kind of enhance the components? So in this example, we can tweak all these things, just like those small things that really maybe no one notices. But we have a brand, as you know, we have a brand to take care of. And if you don't communicate that well, you go from having people out there that use these components every day. They can get really annoyed because maybe this little change fucks up their flow or whatever that they're doing, and that would just be a bad thing, right? And if we kind of just continue that way, the worst thing that could happen is that they just start making their own kind of copies of the components that are not updated whenever we do it with the code and stuff like that. And then you have this like secrecy, really not working as a team together or not as a brand. So we really don't want that to happen. So we could, of course, say that, sorry, this is the component that we've decided on. If you don't want to use it, find a different place to work. But that's really not like a good, instantly doesn't sound like a good solution. And also, an important part of including the other designers in the decisions is that, okay, so we sit in cross-platform teams. So if they get challenged from other developers or other product managers in their team saying that, I'm not sure about that rounded rectangle, or like they need to be able to talk and kind of persuade that this is the right solution. They need to know why we've made that decision. Otherwise, you get this like unsure, like, okay, what is really your relationship to the design system? Do you care at all? So we really think that it is important to share that knowledge and kind of include people. So our goal was to make it easier to contribute into the design system and also engage for more ownership of the design system. So that's really important. So we started off trying to tackle this with this beautiful Trello board, trying to find all our needs to involve more designers and more people into the design system. The do's and don'ts. Okay, so we don't want people to be a part of the whole process because that's kind of too difficult for them to do. Maybe they don't have, or most people don't have time to do that. And we kind of figured out, okay, we need to kind of find out where we are. So we did an interview with all the designers in the team and trying to get to know or find out, like, okay, how is it to actually use the design system today? What do you feel is the ownership or your ownership? What do you feel you can contribute with? Your elevator pitch for the design system, because eventually you're out there and you're talking, and what do you say that it is, right? Do we have a common understanding of what that is? And also lastly, like, okay, how, call it like maturity level, like where on a scale from 1 to 10 do you feel that you're confident to either contribute into the design system or give feedback even? So that was kind of eye-opening for us to see like what we thought, because we'd drawn out the whole process, but we kind of found out, oh, people really don't have time for this. So yeah. Yeah, so all this insight led us to 6 questions or problems that we had to solve. It was, for example, like, what is the process of introducing or changing a component? Or when does a component go from being a single case scenario to being included in the design system? Or how does the UX designer know that they're using the component in the correct way? So these were all questions we had to try to figure out in order to reach our goal of
engage for ownership. So the three contribution phases are, the first one is about using the design system, and the middle one is about creating, and the third one is about documenting. So we don't really expect everyone to do all the three phases, because that would be too difficult. But we expect everyone to be in the first phase of using the design system. And what that means is that they would use the components from the UI library we have, and also follow the guidelines we have in Finivash. And we also put in a point there that's called Design System Meeting for 30 minutes, which is a meeting that everyone in the team can have with the entire UX team to figure out, like, if they have a problem with the components or if they need a new component. So they can call in the entire team to discuss this and to see if it's a need and what to do next. And we also started using Wave, which is a design tool where we can upload our sketches and the other designers can give feedback. So this is a way for them to know if they're using the components correctly, and also to feel that they're in the decision making when we create components. And also we expect everyone to give feedback and suggestions. The middle one is about creating, and that can be just contributing, like a really low key, like give us a draft on Slack or email if you need guidelines for something, or if you have made this cool icon, then you can just send the draft to us and we can fix it. That will really help us a lot. And last is the document phase, which is what me and Toy is doing most of the time. So that's about actually creating the component and giving the task to the developers and follow up stakeholders. So we're reaching the end. So what you learned today is what a design system is, and you should keep your tools to a minimum and figure out what do you really need. And also, to keep the design system alive, you need to include the entire village. And maybe you're wondering, like, how do I start this? So we're going to give you a few tips if you want to. The first one is figure out what do you really need. Do you need guidelines, or do you need coded components, or do you need a UI kit? And you don't need to start with all of them. You can maybe just start with one of them.
I think in many cases, sorry.
Should I go back?
Yeah. I think in many cases, if you're a consultant working on a small project for a client, maybe at least to start somewhere. Maybe it's enough with that, with the UI design kits, so that at least the designers are on board, and then later on maybe you just code it from there, right? So it really depends.
Yeah, and try to not start with like doing all the components either. Maybe it's better to have. Maybe you use buttons and drop downs, so you create buttons and drop downs that have guidelines, UI kit and coded components for just those. So yeah, you have to see a bit what do you really need. And conferences is nice to go to. We were at Clarity Conference last November, which was a good design system conference in San Francisco. You want to take the next one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, steal things from other design systems. There's a lot of stuff out there that is kind of open for you to do in on. Finivas.fin.no, check it out. We have all the guidelines there. Salesforce, material design, MailChimp, Atlassian. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there. Kind of have a look at it, find out what the basics are that you need for your products or company, whatever. Just start somewhere, because it can be like a daunting task. Like, okay, the big design system that's gonna dictate everything in the future. But again, it's never, the design system is never really complete. It's gonna iterate, it's gonna mature, it's gonna So check out what's out there, and also you can. There's a big design system community on Slack that I think Gina started. Yeah, one of the goddesses of design systems. So here you can ask for tips or ask for whatever.
And we have a City Oslo channel, so we can see what's happening in Oslo about design systems.
Yep.
So I think it's next week or the week after is design system breakfast, actually.
Yeah. So that's us. Thank you very much for listening to us. We have to have that flame animation.